welcome to the 32nd episode of Skyrim Good Content, and let me just say, it feels great to be back. Today's topic, the Whispering Door, was a request from the comments, and one I will gladly oblige. While I totally forgot about this quest at first, the memories immediately started returning once I started my research. It's actually one of the first times I took a deep dive into Skyrim's good content. Or, well, I was talking to someone who did, back in the mods comment section, back in July 2015? Jesus! The mod in question doesn't even exist anymore in its original state, but that doesn't mean I don't have this ancient screenshot from way back then. At that time, I was just getting into my whole research and content creation shtick. But that's enough about me. We're here to talk about some good content, right? Well, we are. But first, a quick recap of the quest in the final game. You receive a rumor from the innkeeper of the Bannered Mare in Whiterun about the children of Jarl Balgrove acting strange. You then go to talk to him about it, which leads you to his youngest son Nelkir, which leads you to an old door in the basement. Bam, we found what the title of the quest refers to. Now all we need to do is open the door to get the goodie behind it. Said goodie being the Ebony Blade, an artifact of the Daedric Prince Mephala, who has been talking to us throughout the quest and was doing so with Nelkir as well. You can get the key to the door from either Balgrove himself or Hrongar the Court Wizard. Afterwards you open the door, get the blade and are instructed to kill your friends in order to restore it to its full potential. This part lingers on, but for all intents and purposes the quest is done. But hold on a minute, weren't we just talking to a child influenced by an otherworldly entity? The answer to that would be yes, but that plotline never really goes anywhere or has any consequences whatsoever. Ah, Skyrim, you never disappoint. I will say right now that by the end of this video I don't think this plot will become much clearer, but at the very least you'll have a better understanding of why it is the way it is. Okay, now to tackle the content itself. We'll be starting at the very beginning, the rumor that kicks off the quest. It states,
Been hearing some strange tales of the Jarl's children. Say the one's turning wicked, and the others have an ill-favored look to them. Best to keep clear.
This may not seem significant, but the fact that it states that all three of the children are acting odd is more important than you may think at first. Even the quest objective states, ask about Balgrove's strange children, plural. Even when you ask Balgrove himself, you say, I've heard there's trouble with your children. But then he just goes,
Yes, my youngest son. He's a dark child. I don't know what to do with him.
And at no point does your character ever go, wait, your youngest son? What about your other son and your daughter? Are they fine? It's just never addressed again. And to no one's surprise, it wasn't always meant to be like this. I mean, it's kinda sad too, since these are three children of a Jarl, and not just any Jarl, the Jarl of the so-called Crown Jewel of Skyrim. Yet his children barely get any dialogue and basically don't have any character, despite them logically being next in line for Jarldom. Not even the official guide can spare a single word about them. For Talos' sake, even Serland and Harold got more effort put into their characterization, and you probably don't even know who they are. Ignoring that, however, what do the files tell us? Well, that's the problem. They don't really tell us much. Or well, they don't tell us anything clearly. First things first, I guess. In the final game, the quest ends at stage 80. But there is evidence that the quest was meant to continue after this. And that from stage 80 onwards, the quest would be completely different from what we got in the final game. An example of this are stages 100 and 110. It's important to note that these stages and any stages that might have come after them got completely removed and only get mentioned in scripts. Okay, let's start with this. DA08 Nelkir Sneak Around Dragon's Reach. This is an AI package that's attached to the quest, but it doesn't do anything, because it's not set up correctly. It doesn't have any time set, and it doesn't even make him sneak. It was meant to make Nelkir patrol 5 different points throughout Dragon's Reach, but now he just uses his normal AI behavior. So I suppose the intention was to make meeting Nelkir a bit more weird or unnerving, and I can respect that. After this, things go downhill. Fast. So once we've passed the early stage 80, it seems that Frotar, Nelkir's brother, would be the next to get possessed or influenced by Mephala. It's never actually made clear what exactly she does with the children, so I don't really know which one it is. An interesting thing here is that Nelkir's possessed dialogue is tied to stage 25 of the quest, while Frotar's is tied to stage 80. These 3 lines are tied to the quest specifically.
Hope this war lasts long enough that I get to fight in it. Battle! Glory! You're not from around here. I bet you're here to help with the war. Father says I'm too young to train with the sword, so I practice with my fists.
At first glance they don't seem off, but I suppose that they were meant to imply that Mephala's influence made Frotar obsessed with the war or fighting in it, or just more violent in general. It's also possible that these lines would be changed into completely different ones after stage 80 was completed, seeing as these lines are only meant to play before that point, but nothing else remains. Whatever the case, if his war lines were meant to imply Mafala influence, then that's kinda stupid since 60% of Skyrim NPCs only ever talk about the war. Continuing on with Frotar, it seems that after stage 80, he would go completely bonkers. And remember, stage 80 is the very last stage of the quest in the final game, not just some midpoint. So the quest played out quite differently. In the script there are some properties mentioned called Frotar should force greet and turned Frotar. So I guess the latter would activate around this time. It is however unclear to me at what point Frotar would force greet you. This of course doesn't help. There's also a property called Learned About Frotar, so it seems you really had to learn about what afflicted the Jarl's other children before you could talk to them. Just like with Nelkir in the final game. Would have been cool too, since, as I said before, we don't learn anything about Balgruf's children in the final game, like at all. It seems that after some values were set, it would be Frotar's time to shine. And with that I mean that he apparently would go to speak directly with the Ebony Blade, and it would happen in a scene. I know this thanks to this script and its mention of debug code. Now, seeing as Mafala would apparently communicate through the blade, this means that maybe the Whispering Door would be unlocked at this point, resulting in Mafala's influence having a larger reach? I don't know, but it seems plausible. So, what would Mafala demand of Frotar? That's pretty easy. It seems that she would command him to kill Corinda. Who's Corinda? Well, she's someone that gets a full one mention in the game, by Dagny.
Where's Papa? I want to ride Corinda now.
Corinda is a horse owned by Dagny that was meant to appear at the Whiterun stables. She is marked as invulnerable, meaning that attacks go straight through her. A script also makes it impossible to interact with her, to prevent the player from riding off with her. Besides this, the only noteworthy thing is a unique AI package she has, which should make her travel to the stables despite being located there by default. Either she wasn't meant to always be located there, or some developer just messed up and made the wrong kind of AI package. So, our friend Frotar would make use of an AI package called DA08 Frotar Waited Stables to travel from Dragon's Reach to Whiterun Stables. Based on the attached condition, this would also still play out in stage 80 of the quest. I guess that Frotar would wait here for the player, and his siblings would also be present, as at one point they are supposed to be teleported to the back of the stables in order to witness the act. Then this scene would play out. I'm sorry in advance for all the horse lovers present. Couple of things to note here. 1. A property is set, called Frotar Goes Nuts, so I suppose there's no going back for him. This property also appears in the main quest script and it handles the action meant to play out during the scene, such as setting Corinda to no longer be invulnerable and setting Frotar's confidence to foolhardy, making him sure to fight. Afterwards, his confidence gets lowered again back to the standard 0. One thing is for sure though, and that's that after Frotar kills Corinda, stage 100 of the quest would be set. Now, you may be wondering how Frotar would kill the horse, and according to this script snippet, he would use the Ebony Blade to do so. Well, damn. Okay, so, what was meant to happen in stage 100? Well, it seems that firstly, Dagny would now also be fully under the control of Mafala. How exactly this would happen is unknown, as there's no leftovers indicating Mafala would speak to her directly. Maybe seeing her beloved horse slaughtered in front of her eyes just cracked the girl. Going back to her, she also has quote-unquote possessed lines like her siblings, and those are also linked to stage 100 of the quest. So I guess it's safe to say that Dagny would be the last one to turn wicked. At this point you may be wondering about something, and that's what the player would be doing through all this. And to that I say, no clue. All the remaining stuff is just what happened to the NPCs during this quest, not what the player would be doing during all this. Going back to those NPCs though, we're about to hit our climax. Yes, you probably already knew, but the trio of kids is now gearing up to kill their father, Jarl Balgruf the Greater. This would also happen in a scene. 5 NPCs would partake in this part of the quest. Balgruf, Nelkir, Dagny, Frotar and Proventus Avenici. Yeah, remember Proventus? And like the other handful of NPCs that normally inhabit Dragon's Reach? They just wouldn't notice anything weird going on, I suppose. Hrongar is especially weird since depending on the player's action, he could probably be aware of what was going on. I keep getting distracted by bad quest design. Maybe I should just become a new Vegas Cut content YouTuber, so we can just skip that part. Moving on. Inside of the cell Dragon's Reach Jarl's quarters, we can find 5 markers. DA08 Proventus Wait Spot, DA08 Dagny Wait Spot, DA08 Nelkir Wait Spot, DA08 Frotar Wait Spot, and DA08 Balgruf Kill Marker. This setup is kinda weird. We have Balgruf in the big dining hall portion, looking at a door. Their children are present at the other side of the door, possibly wanting to get in. And Proventus, on the other hand, is present in the children's room. Why is Proventus there? Well, there is a property in the quest script called Old Proventus Sealed Door. So my guess is that Proventus had to be locked up in that room in order for him to not be an obstacle in killing Balgruf. He might have also locked himself in there to hide from the wicked children, but I couldn't tell you what exactly was meant to play out with him. Balgruf though? It's about time he dies. How would this happen? Well, according to this AI package, DA08 Balgruf wait to die in scene, he would be killed in a scene at stage 100 of the quest. And according to his attached script, DA08 Balgruf script, the Ebony Blade would once more be used here. And that's all there is to that. What a tease, right? But there really isn't more to it. I know, it would be awesome to have some files about children killing a fully grown man, but it's basically done. However, there still are some things we need to look at. Like the voice files. They actually remain. Okay, no, I can't say it like that because I'll make myself sad. So look, there are some voice files left over, but they don't actually have any audio most of the time. Some file names do give some more insight though. For example, Balgruf's introduction of Nelkir got one line removed, as seen by the numbers used. If I had to guess, it would have probably been about his other children. Frotar has a multitude of unused lines. The line he was meant to force greet the player with, for example. Also something about his corruption probably. Then also 3 lines that would follow each other. And it seems these would have been in response to the player goading him on to kill Corinda, which is kinda dark. Then what appears to be 3 lines he would have used when killing Corinda. And then 2 hellos he would have used after his corruption, replacing his other hellos. Or at least, that's what I presume. Dagny also has 2 such hellos, and 3 lines she was meant to use in a scene. Proventus has 7 lines that were meant to be used in a scene, so he likely had some kind of exchange with 1 or more NPCs at the end of the quest. Nelkir has 1 line about getting the blade, likely something to do with the children getting a hold of the Ebony Blade. He also has 5 lines that follow each other, referring to push Nelkir over edge, so this might be about him pushing someone over the edge, possibly Dagny, but it might as well be any of the aforementioned NPCs. It might also be the player pushing him over an edge, which may result in the final line, Nelkir goes ape-poop, which is his snapping moment, just like how Frotar and Dagny seemingly had theirs. And this line is the only one that remains intact. Let's have a listen.
We're going to punish my father, you and I.
Okay, so what this does is it basically confirms that Nelkir's snapping moment is directly tied to him wanting to kill Balgruf. It's also very likely that the you and I refers to the player and not one of his siblings, due to the naming convention of the line itself, which is used for NPC to player interaction and not scene dialogue. Lastly, there are 9 lines of dialogue recorded in the male-child voice type that were meant to be used during scenes. Due to these kinds of lines not specifying a speaker, it's unclear which would be said by Nelkir and which would be said by Frotar. The only other noteworthy thing here for me to mention is that there are remnants of this quest that show it was also meant to work even if Balgruf and the children got exiled, something that doesn't even happen in the final game as the children go into hiding. They actually don't, but humor the game with me. It seems that this behavior is tied to a quest stage 110, which doesn't have any other references. And weirdly enough, it seems that Nelkir and Dagny would be disabled by this stage. I don't know for what reason though. There's also code to correctly disable Corinda during the battle for Whiterun quest, but that's stretching the definition of noteworthy. So, what now? You may have noticed there's still some runtime left. Well, that's because while the quest itself got cut into pieces, we still have a lot of content that's related to the follow-up of this quest. And of course, not everything makes sense. Let me just set the scene. Jarl Balgruf got murdered. Court Wizard Hrongar's status is unknown. Both Steward Proventus and Housecarl Irelet stuck around though. The trio of children? Well, since I don't really want to put a group suicide by minors in my headcanon, let's just say they ran away, since they aren't ever mentioned again. So, Hrongar, who was Balgruf's brother, and who was suspiciously completely absent during the quest events, takes up the title of Jarl. Besides this fact, there is some new dialogue unlocked by the event. For example, this scene with him and Avenici.
My lord Jarl, if we do not take steps soon, our coffers will be empty.
Raise the taxes then. Put anyone that refuses to pay in the stocks and make an example of them.
As you command, my lord, but the issue could be solved another way. If we spend less on new arms and armor for the guards, for example.
We are at war, old fool. Or have you forgotten? Whiterun is the crown jewel of Skyrim, and you would leave us defenseless?
Forgive me, my lord. It was foolish of me to make such a suggestion.
You may notice Hrongar's more hot-blooded nature. This gets elaborated on in this new dialogue unlocked by Ulfbert Warbear. Normally, the conversation would go like this.
That'll be the Jarl, Balgruf the Greater. He's an honorable enough man. Never done wrong by me or my kin. Things are tough for him now, I'd wager. What with the fighting and the dragons. But Balgruf's a tough old Nord. He can handle it.
But with Hrongar as Jarl, it gets altered to this.
Hrongar became the Jarl when his brother Balgruf, who had the job before him, was murdered. Balgruf was an even-tempered man, but his brother's a hot-blooded warmonger who wants to settle everything with a blade. If you've got some business with Hrongar, mind you, stay on his good side. The palace dungeon's filled with folk who roused his temper.
And that's basically it for Whiterun. But we'll return here in a bit. Now, our focus is gonna shift to the most altered aspect of this whole thing. It's this little thing, what's it called again? Oh yeah, the Civil War. That's where most of the changes can be found. While they may be minor, they show that the developers were putting in some effort to make this alternate path feel like not just an afterthought. Although some portions are of course more complete than others. First off are these two scenes that happen at the war tables at both the Imperial and Stormcloak headquarters before Message to Whiterun is started. Both scenes talk about the impending invasion of the city. For the Imperials, the scene would usually go like this.
I'm telling you, Ulfric's planning an attack on Whiterun.
He'd be insane to try. He doesn't have the men.
That's not what my scouts report, sir. Every day more join his cause. Riften, Dawnstar, and Winterhold support him.
It's not a cause. It's a rebellion.
Call it whatever you like, General. The man's going to try to take Whiterun.
Jarl Balgruf.
Balgruf refuses the Legion's right to garrison troops in his city. On the other hand, he also refuses to acknowledge Ulfric's claim.
Well, if he wants to stand outside the protection of the Empire, fine. Let Ulfric pillage his city.
General.
You people and your damn Jarls.
Sir, you can't force a Nord to accept help he hasn't asked for.
If Ulfric's making a move for Whiterun, then we need to be there to stop him. Draft another letter with the usual platitudes, but this time share some of your intelligence regarding Ulfric's plans. Embellish if you have to. We'll let it seem like it's his idea.
Yes, sir.
You Nords and your bloody sense of honor.
Sir.
With Balgruf dead, it gets edited appropriately.
I'm telling you, Ulfric's planning an attack on Whiterun.
He'd be insane to try. He doesn't have the men.
That's not what my scouts report, sir. Every day more join his cause. Riften, Dawnstar, and Winterhold support him.
It's not a cause. It's a rebellion.
Call it whatever you like, General. The man's going to try to take Whiterun.
Jarl Hrongar.
Hrongar carries on the policies of his brother and refuses to acknowledge the Legion's right to garrison troops in his city. On the plus side, he also refuses to acknowledge Ulfric's claim.
The same goes for the Stormcloak variant. Here's how it usually goes.
Balgruf won't give us a straight answer.
He's a true Nord. He'll come around.
Don't be so sure of that. We've intercepted couriers from Solitude. The Empire's putting a great deal of pressure on Whiterun.
And what would you have me do?
If he's not with us, he's against us.
He knows that. They all know that.
How long are you going to wait?
You think I need to send Balgruf a stronger message?
If by message you mean shoving a sword through his gullet.
And this is the other variant.
Hrongar won't give us a straight answer.
He's a true Nord. He'll come around.
Don't be so sure of that. We've intercepted couriers from Solitude. The Empire's putting a great deal of pressure on Whiterun.
And what would you have me do?
If he's not with us, he's against us.
He knows that. They all know that.
How long are you going to wait?
You think I need to send Hrongar a stronger message?
If by message you mean shoving a sword through his gullet.
I hope you enjoyed those scenes as much as me, by the way, because I think they're really nice characterizations of both sides. Then, on the Imperial side, we also have this scene between the Jarl and his advisors.
Proventus, what do you make of all this? If Ulfric were to attack Whiterun...
As in all things, Lord, caution. I urge us to wait and see.
Pray wait.
I'm of a mind with Irileth. It's time to act.
You plan to march on Windhelm?
I'm not a fool, Proventus. I mean, it's time to challenge Ulfric to face me as a man. Or to declare his intentions.
He'll do no such thing.
He was rather straightforward with Torrig.
Torrig? He simply walked up to the boy and murdered him.
That boy was High King of Skyrim.
I'm not the High King. But neither am I a boy. If Ulfric wants to challenge my rule in the old way, let him. Though I suspect he'll prefer to send his storm cloaks to do it for him.
True. He's already proven his personal strength. Now he seeks to prove his armies.
Then might I urge you to consider General Tullius's request? I mean, if you are bent on offending Jarl Ulfric.
Ulfric is the one who has offended. But Proventus has a point. Ulfric has made it clear. In his mind, to refuse his claim is to side with the Empire.
And what harm is there in letting a few legionnaires die in place of your own men?
It seems cowardly.
Was it cowardly, then, to accept the white gold concordat?
This again. That was different. Was I given a chance to object to the terms of the treaty? No, the Jarls weren't asked. We were told, and we had to like it.
The chests of gold didn't hurt.
Damn it! This isn't about gold!
Of course, the dialogue gets changed with Hrongar, although it's mostly identical.
Ulfric is the one who has offended. But Proventus has a point. Ulfric has made it clear. In his mind, to refuse his claim is to side with the Empire.
And what harm is there in letting a few legionnaires die in place of your own men?
It seems cowardly.
Was it cowardly, then, to accept the white gold concordat?
This again. That was different. Was Balgruf given a chance to object? No. The Jarls weren't asked. He was told, and he had to like it.
The chests of gold didn't hurt.
Damn it, this isn't about gold.
The axe-handing dialogue between Ulfric and the player is also a bit different. Here's it normally.
I'm glad you're here. I have a message I need delivered to the Jarl of Whiterun. Deliver this axe to Balgruf the Greater. Men who understand each other often have no need for words. There are but a few simple truths behind one warrior giving another his axe. Balgruf will know my meaning.
And here's the alternate version.
I'm glad you're here. I have a message I need delivered to the Jarl of Whiterun. Deliver this axe to Jarl Hrongar. Men who understand each other often have no need for words. There are but a few simple truths behind one warrior giving another his axe. Hrongar will know my meaning.
Normally you would also carry Balgruf's war axe, but there's also alternate text changing it to Hrongar's war axe. The last notable change appears in the Battle for Whiterun quest proper. Once you infiltrate Dragon's Reach, the confrontation with the Jarl goes as follows.
Halt! In the name of the Jarl, Balgruf the Greater!
It's a little late for that, don't you think?
Stay back, Lord!
I'll be damned if I let this rabble take my city without raising my own sword!
Protect the Jarl with your lives!
But with Hrongar at the helm, it's slightly different.
Halt! In the name of the Jarl Hrongar!
It's a little late for that, don't you think?
Stay back, Lord!
I'll be damned if I let this rabble take my city without raising my own sword.
Protect the Jarl with your lives!
Normally, you would fight the Jarl, and once they're down, they would call off the fight. Balgruf would do this as follows.
Enough! That's enough. I surrender. I surrender. Peace! Everyone stand down. That's an order. Stand down!
But, strangely, Hrongar has no corresponding line. One of the only times this is the case. The following exchange is an example of how the other instances of Hrongar's dialogue go.
Balgruf! Vigna Greymane, your family was noticeably absent from the walls. Now I know why. Wouldn't a dagger in the back have sufficed?
You think this is personal? The Empire has no place in Skyrim. Not anymore. And you have no place in Whiterun anymore.
A convenient position to hold now. But mark my words, old man. In the days to come, Ulfric will spread his rebellion thin. And what then? We need the Empire as much as it needs us. We Nords are the Empire. Our blood built it. Our blood sustains it. You, of all people, should know that.
If this was my empire, I'd be able to worship whoever I damned well pleased. You wish to see an empire without Talos? Without its soul? We should be fighting those witch elves, not bending knee to them. The Emperor's nothing more than a puppet of the Thalmor. Skyrim needs a High King who will fight for her. And Whiterun needs a Jarl who will do the same.
Tell me, Vigna, was all this worth it? How many of those corpses lining our streets were the faces of men who once called you friend? What about their families?
Enough! Both of you! There is a burning city out there that needs a government. He's right. Galmar, come. Let us restore order.
This isn't over. You hear me, you old fool? This isn't over. And you, a Stormcloak. I'd thought better of you. You'll all come to regret this day.
As you could have guessed, this is just a carbon copy of Balgroof's dialogue, and Vignar's dialogue isn't even altered. This is the case for all the other interactions with him. Hrongar has dialogue to attend a meeting in Season Unending, for example, but Arngir will still address him as Jarl Balgroof. Sad to see that Hrongar got so little unique dialogue in line with his character, like Ericr in his unused lines. I'm not gonna play them all here, but Hrongar has duplicates of all of Balgroof's dialogue for the quest Season Unending and The Fallen, but also all of the Civil War quests and even parts that don't appear in the final game. To be frank, I don't know what Bethesda was trying to do here. Honestly. Now, I'm all for children that can kill and be killed in games, but I don't think we were quite ready for that in 2011. Nowadays, it would be an easier sale to pitch, I suppose, but back then? It's surprising to see how far they actually got with this concept before going for a less controversial approach. I think that's the whole reason why this quest was so undercooked in the final game. They either finished the quest and took half of it out of the game, or they wanted to make a complete quest, stopped halfway through, and said, we'll fix it up at a later date, but that date never came, so we ended up with only a half-realized end result. I appreciate the effort they tried to put into making Hrongar the replacement Jarl, but just like so many characters before them, I feel Hrongar, Dagny, Frothar and Nelkir really got a short end of the stick here, and basically lost all of their characterization because their most important content got cut. It really is a sad day when I have to make a video where I'm reminded that Sarand and Harold got better characterization twice. And that's it. Thank you for listening. Please leave your thoughts and requests in the comments below, and I'll see you next time.